Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 Podcast. My name's Palm.
And I'm Andy.
And I am Martin.
And together, we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome to another episode of your favourite watch-related podcast. Today, we have the return of, I can't call him a guest, he is the resident gentleman, the third member of the team, but I know Andy is bursting to tell you who we've got on the show.
We have the legend. We have Martin Green finally back in action on the show. It's taken a while. We've just been so busy, it seems, lately. But Martin, most importantly, how are you doing?
Good. I'm very good. I'm blushing now, so I'm glad this is a podcast and we don't have video here. I didn't know I was hired. Am I hired? Am I now full-time on staff, Parm? Before we go into that, let's do a wristwatch check. What's on the wrist, gents?
I'll go first. All right. So today I am wearing my Breitling Chronomac Cult 41 with the grey dial, but it's a special one today. I'm wearing the CP7 REM straps collaboration strap called the Tiger. It's a strap we got made with Totte from REM Straps, specifically for the podcast. There are still some available if you want them. I met Andy in Geneva, and he managed to give me my strap after about, it was
after
about
a very
3 months.
long wait. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. It's hard for me to take this watch off my wrist, actually, since I put this strap on it. But that's what I've got on my wrist. Andy, what about yourself?
I've gone back to a watch which I haven't worn for some time. And I think it's just because it's a special watch to me and I pick and choose when I wear this. So it's my granddad's Vertex. So it's a classic cushion case, beautiful 9-carat gold case, in great condition, actually. And yeah, it just connects me with my family. So a piece what I really, really enjoy wearing. So that's what I'm rocking today. And Martin, how about yourself?
Well, I also went down to memory lane because I'm wearing my Omega Seamaster Professional. It was actually the very, very, very first watch I bought in 1999. And this is actually the watch that got me into watches.
Wow. That's the original Pierce Brosnan GoldenEye one, right? Or no?
This is the automatic. GoldenEye was quartz, so it's the full size, with the bond bracelet, blue dial, blue aluminum bezel insert, and still going strong after 25 years. I mean, I love this watch. Even today, it still looks contemporary. I know Omega has a very nice new collection of Seamasters out, which are almost identical in terms of design. But this, to me, it also tells me I really like aluminum bezel inserts. What's your opinion about that? Because I think that's something special. I know that the ceramic, it's better and it doesn't fade. But to me, there's something about the look of aluminum bezel inserts.
I think you get two answers from us, and it's represented perfectly because I'm the vintage guy, Palm's more of a modern guy. So as a vintage lover, I love a faded aluminium bezel. Palm?
I like the ceramic, but I do appreciate, because I had a Black Bay 58. I had two Black Bay 58s, the black one and the blue one. And it gave it a special look with an aluminium bezel. So I agree, I do think, but just the modernity of a ceramic bezel resonates with me that little bit more.
But yeah, it's just the vintage thing. I won't go deeper than that. Just the odd battle scar, the odd bit of fading, just gives the watch so much character, in my opinion. But I can appreciate wanting to keep your watch pristine as well in a modern era, so it makes sense. I think either way is no wrong or right on that.
And that's a beautiful watch. So just for the listeners at home, I just want to say, today we were going to record a Geneva Watch Days Part 2. But we put a pin in that because Martin Green was available. And when Martin's available, that's it. It's time for the Martin Green takeover. So Martin Green is actually going to be running this show today. So Martin, fire away.
Fire away. Well, actually, I'm still very interested in what you guys were up to at Geneva Watch Days because it was the very first time you both went.
Second, without you. First time without yourself.
Second time.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, because I didn't went. And for me, it was the very first time that I couldn't go. So I missed out on something because quite honestly, I still think it might actually be the best show they have in Geneva. I know Watches and Wonders, it's amazing, but it's rather limited access. You have to really be part of the community to get in. While Geneva Watch Days, it's more like, it's like a celebration of journalists, brands, but also enthusiasts.
I agree with that completely. Lots of enthusiasts there, yeah.
An interesting thing, I received the press release after the event of Geneva Watch Days, and the attendance just this year from previous had increased by 70 or 75%, something along these lines, which is crazy. Like, that's how it's an event what's just constantly growing, which is exciting, right? It's a good thing. It shows how popular it is.
You know what that means? That next year the hotels will be absolutely unaffordable. But
that did cross my mind. We need to book the hotels now.
It is good news for the industry, and I was also very pleased with the very high quality of new watches that were still introduced. A lot of brands really had some spectacular things to show us, including the thinnest watch in the world.
Konstantin Chaikin. Apparently, they did a breakfast and they didn't tell anyone what was going on, and they put a plastic version of the watch on the table. When we went to see MBNF, we saw a guy wearing that. We didn't know. We weren't aware of what went on and how they all executed it all. Everyone was just kind of, is that the Chaikin? And he was like, no, it's a bit of plastic. The next person, and then he was like, oh, is that the Chaikin? No, it's a bit of plastic.
Afar,
he was.
It looked like the real deal.
Yeah. It looked a bit lighter, than the pictures, but it was like this guy was getting hounded.
Was there a watch that you guys actually wanted to take home that resonated so well
There's
with you
many.
that you were like,
yes,
there is many, but I'd love to, just before we move, just on the Chaikin release, do you think it was under-received? When I say under-received, like, enthusiasts like us go crazy for it. But generally speaking, like, if it's RM doing it or if it's Piaget doing it with the thinnest tourbillon, it's huge, it's big, it's everywhere. And I feel like with the Chaikin, it was a little bit overlooked. I don't know what you guys think to that. I kind of think it's a little shadowed. And if it was a different brand, it wouldn't have been. And I don't quite understand why that is.
Yeah, I think it wasn't in production, though. It was just basically a teaser as well. So maybe that's why. But the bigger brands do make a bit more of a hoo-ha about it.
Exactly, yeah.
But Martin knows a lot more about this than myself. So what do you reckon, Martin?
Well, first of all, the other brands, they have like marketing and PR, either an agency or they have it in-house. So, they can make a buzz. What I think is, was it under-received? I don't think so, because in the end, it's still the thinnest. I mean, does it really make sense to try to make the thinnest? I don't know. But it's fun, and it's part of humankind's DNA. We always want to push the envelope. And what I actually like the best of this watch is that it's actually good looking. A lot of those very thin watches, I mean, quite honestly, I love Richard Mille as a brand. I don't think that their second thinnest watch in the world is their best looking watch. So, but this is really, it's an attractive watch. It's fun. In the end, I think if it goes into production, he probably can keep up with
it. And it's probably better for him in that sense. Like, a bigger brand can keep up with that demand. But for a smaller independent, it's difficult if it goes that viral to actually produce that quantity of watches.
I mean, how many does he make in a year?
That's another question.
Just of any of the watches.
Another question.
He has other watches to make as well. So if this goes insane, then...
And how difficult it is for him to produce it, right? But I do agree his DNA's there. The smiley face is still there. So the DNA of Chaikin has not been lost on the thinnest watch, which is important, right? That makes it desirable still.
What I actually hope is that, I mean, he can obviously sell this for a pretty penny because it is the thinnest watch in the world. I actually hope that it generates extra revenue for him, because I know that he will invest that in new watches. I mean, it might be a gateway for even better things to come. And they might not be the thinnest, because at the end, at some point, it will be how thin can you go. But for certainly will result in other interesting watches, I think.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the Richard Mille Ferrari collaboration there. He kind of went down the same line with that, where the dials are quite minimal and most of the surface is metallic. And one thing I've got to say, I like the Bulgari more because you have a proper dial. It's ridiculously thin, obviously, but the aesthetics are more of like a watch, and this is more like a genius master watchmaker just having
showing
fun.
What it can do.
I think the other ones are a bit more serious. The Piaget and the Bulgari.
Yeah, that's true as well.
I mean, first of all, they're big brands, so they can do a lot of they can have fun, but not too much, if you know what I mean. Plus, if you're like
Yeah.
Piaget and you're a very esteemed, very established brand, and you're charging, what is it, like 400, 500,000 euros for a single watch. I mean, there are not many people that spend that kind of money on something that looks like a joke, which it isn't. So I
Yeah.
can see why they make it seriously looking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it also needs to age well, you know. I think that both the Piaget and the Bulgari will achieve that because they're still good-looking watches.
Yeah, and independent brands, we've talked about this before in previous shows, is they can have fun, they can be creative. The more established mainstream brands have to keep that base happy and stay within a certain design language.
You can't take
So
as big a risk.
Yeah, it's
The
unfortunate.
problem is also that the bigger brands, they also have a bigger community behind them. So it's not like the few people that actually enjoy more quirky watches with special designs. So I think that plays into the game as well. But it's challenging, of course. You know, you want to do something special, but you also you don't want to lose your client base.
Yeah, it's a fine balancing act. I think the Piaget blew me away when I saw that at Watches and Wonders. I thought it was incredible. I thought the balance on the dial, the way it had been done, it was very beautiful. And as you mentioned, it will stand the test of time. And it needs to for that price point from such a pristine brand as well, right? Esteemed brand. But that's probably my favorite.
I was lucky last year. We saw the Piaget, and then it wasn't it was the thinnest tourbillon, wasn't it? It wasn't the thin. And then a couple of months later, I was lucky enough to be invited to Bulgari in London to see the new Octo Finissimo, and it was so delicate. I don't think they wanted anyone to try it on, which again defeats the purpose of a watch. But it was.
It raises
special,
questions
I
as
think
well.
It was.
Like, is it that delicate? People, is it because it's so valuable? You need to be careful with how many people.
I think it's
try
valuable.
It? Or is
Yeah,
it delicate?
it was a bunch. It was a bunch of watch enthusiasts, nuts.
You've
who
got to be
basically
a little careful
let
with it,
loose on the thinnest. Yeah, you can't just hand it out to everyone.
It's actually funny that you say that, Parm, because I'm a big enthusiast for Piaget, and I have a lot of experience with the caliber 9P, which was the ultra thin manual wound movement, which was back then the thinnest manual wound movement in the world when it was released in the 60s, I think. The funny thing is, I was one day wearing that watch, but I kind of forgot it because it's so thin and light, and I had to drill a hole. So I had to use my my big power drill, but I forgot I was wearing that watch. So I was like going into the wall, and then as I took it out, it was like, "Oops, this is not the watch I'm supposed to wear doing this."
You were doing DIY.
The funny thing is that the watch, it was like it's. And after that, I actually learned that especially caliber 9P from Piaget, it's extremely sturdy for being so thin. But of course, I mean, if you think the total height of that movement is like 1.9 millimeters, top of my head. Now they make entire watches that are 1.9. Of course, you do pay a lot extra, you know, for shaving off that 1.5 millimeter that they would have otherwise used for the gold case and the sapphire glass and the dial. But kind of like the same as a supercar, you know, you can buy a nice Ferrari and it sets you back a pretty penny, but you know, you're still fast. But then if you want to go like getting like the supercar, the super Ferrari, it's even more faster and more extreme, and you pay a whole lot of more money. But yeah, I think it's also like desirability that really plays a role into these things, you know, owning the thinnest one, which also makes me wonder, you know, if people actually bought the Piaget or the Bulgari, how upset would they be once they saw the news flash of, you know, like Richard Mille is thinner, or Chaikin is thinner.
That's true.
Or, I mean, would that trigger something with people that placed an order for one of the other watches? I don't know. It would be fun to find out.
I think it depends. Do you want the thinnest watch from that brand, or do you want the thinnest watch, period? And if it's the latter, then you're going to be upset. But if you're just happy to have the thinnest from the manufacturer because you love them so much as a brand, then I think you'd probably be cool about it.
I think it hurts the brands more. Their ego gets damaged with, hang on, we had oh my God, they've gone and done it. They've shaved a millimeter off. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bulgari or someone just came out with another one.
Yeah.
Thinner.
But that's cool though, right? That's what do we need these
Competition.
Yeah, exactly. It's what pushes things
What
forward,
we
right?
need.
Yeah. It brings
It sets
innovation.
the bar, doesn't it?
It keeps creativity.
Yeah, it's like an Olympic record.
Well,
If it's not been set, you don't challenge yourself to beat it.
It's healthy.
So it's
very,
always
very healthy,
yeah.
Plus, even if you have like the second or third or fourth finished watch in the world, I mean, you're still a champion. I mean, there's so few that can actually achieve this. So, I mean, you don't really lose. You're still like a winner.
I mean, bronze medalist if you're third. You know, is that really as good as the gold?
He was part of the movement.
did
You were
well.
part of the movement. You know, you played a part.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not kindergarten we're talking about here, you know, and this is like really the top level competition. So, I mean, most brands don't even come close to being able to do things like this. So I think like Annie already says, it's really good for the industry. And I wish that they would compete on more things. You know, I would like to see a competition on. They used to have these chronometer competitions. You know, like those precision competitions. I would love to see that. You know, how precise can you make a mechanical watch?
Yeah, a big
Yeah, but
task,
I mean,
I'd
I
say.
think there's also a lot on the line. So I do agree with you as well on that part. Like a lot of brands, they don't want to lose. So you can't have it that somebody else produces a more precise watch. You better not compete than compete and might come in second place. But I think that especially for the emerging brands that have perhaps more to gain than to lose, could be interesting for them to participate in things like that. It's like the GPHG, you know? I mean, a lot of brands, they try to compete and some win and some don't. But
yeah, they get back up and try again the next year, which is always good,
just to
right?
be nominated to be a part of that. I would imagine if I had my own brand, I'd be very proud of that moment, right? You're on a serious stage in good company, let's say. And I think that's what
true. And I'm a member of the GPHG Academy, so I get to vote every year. And it's a horrendous task, I must say. It's a lot of fun, but I mean, there's so many good watches, and you have to pick. I mean, you can't send in your votes like, yeah, do that or do that. No. I mean, there are watches that you are not giving any points while you're thinking like, yeah, well, it's still a very, very good watch. And in the end, I mean, you can also win stuff and don't sell them enough. I mean, it's not a guarantee to success. Otherwise, if you don't win the GPHG, it's also not a guarantee that you won't have any success. But of course, like the honor to participate and to win, also in the past has helped quite a few brands to establish themselves.
Yeah. One refreshing thing about bring it back to the watchmaker and the watch enthusiasts who love watchmaking is it's a feat of engineering. Whatever they're doing, thinnest, most accurate, it's a feat of engineering. It's not how many diamonds are you putting in or the most precious metal. It is how can you make a timepiece with gears and cogs and just basic hundreds of years old engineering processes better, more accurate, thinner, and look better. It's just it's still refreshing to know that is the aim.
This is why I love the industry so much. Like how many hundreds of years old it is, the basic principle of a mechanical watch, and the fact that we're still innovating today. It's what makes it so special, right? And we never want to lose
That's crazy, actually, when you think about it, because in all honesty, and how great it is, mechanical watches are an obsolete technology. They have been surpassed by other ways of telling time that are either more precise or far less expensive, and usually both. But still, it's a multi-billion euro industry. And like you say, Andy, it's continuing to innovate. It almost has become an art form. And, you know, events like Geneva Watch Days, like Watches and Wonders, like GPHG, you know, they're just celebrating this incredible environment in which we are still getting excited to see something completely obsolete evolve to an art form.
It actually brings me to another subject point. What came to me, and I'm going to let Pam take over with this, but it leads to Louis Vuitton and what they were up to when we were very lucky enough to visit their fabric of time, right? Their facilities, and it leads to a different part of. We've talked wristwatches, but I think there's a trend with pocket watches. But I'm going to let Pam lead with this part.
We were lucky enough to go to the LVMH Fabrique du Temps manufacture, where they showed us their operation, how they do things, some of their most amazing watches. But the star of the show was a pocket watch they're creating for collectors. And it blew my mind, and I knew it blew Andy's mind. The group of people that were with us, it was a jaw drop moment because we were like, wow, because each detail, you didn't realize, it's one of those things, it unfolds, it's like an onion, there's a layer and layer, every layer is, as you open it up, more and more comes out. And it was a Japanese enameled picture with a boat floating across, trees wavering, and on that boat you had Louis Vuitton trunks, which is their heritage, the Louis Vuitton monogram trunk, which opened and a monogram pops out at every hour, I believe it was. And it also chimed. And they thought this was so beautiful that the time was incidental. The time went on the back. The time was skeletonized on the back. But the pocket watch target audience was interesting is because, wow, this is probably your most advanced piece of horological technology, and you're putting it into a pocket watch. What does that say? Is there a trend there? Pocket watches, are they the next big collectors? I wouldn't say they're for everyone, but the big collector's item.
Equally, another brand we went to, we weren't actually part of Geneva Watch Days, but Hublot.
Yeah.
So we went and met some friends at Hublot, and one piece what stood out to me was the Arsham, the droplet. A lot more contemporary in design compared to what LV are up to at the moment, but equally just beautiful as a modern piece of art to handle it, just to hold this kind of crystallized water droplet with the movement inside and the clock. It's just really cool. I think it would be more of a statement piece to have with magnifying glass on display in your home. But again, Hublot are doing this, LV are doing this. Is there the question, I think what we want to put towards Martin is, do you think there's a bit of a comeback with pocket watches?
Oh, honestly, I don't think so. What we see here,
more for collect rather than your hardcore collector.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like for top of the line collectors that already have so much, and they want a really special piece. And mind you, a lot of the brands can do amazing things with pocket watches because they're larger. And because they're larger, you can actually, put more complications in them. You can make them more intricate. You can do amazing. I mean, you had these incredible, it was actually a piece ordered by a collector, that incredible, highly complex Vacheron Constantin that they introduced at Watches and Wonders this year. I mean, it's sensational. But I think that there might actually be more collectors that are in like the top tiers that are interested in these kind of objects. Not so much to carry around in their vest pockets because they probably don't wear those, but just to have them, to own them, to show them when, in their house, to interact with them. So it's more like a clock.
Yeah.
I don't think, next Watches and Wonders we will have a Tag Heuer pocket watch. Although it would cool. No, I don't think so.
It would be cool, actually.
It would be cool
Swatch
if they did
watch.
a chronograph again. I would love that, like a pocket chronograph. But I don't think it will become very mainstream because as nice as pocket watches are, you don't get to wear them. I mean, I don't know if you guys own any pocket watches.
I do, but only from inheritance, in all honesty, not from going out there and purchasing it for myself.
I have one, was a gift on my wedding day, so from my wife. So that's the only one. But it's not something I'd take out in a bit. That's special. I've got a little stand for it, and I keep it on my desk. Actually, I'm looking at it now.
I think that's actually what most people do. They have like one or two that are either from inheritance or like from special occasions, and they treasure it. But in the end, you can't really interact with it. So I mean, I think I have like two pocket watches, which I like. But if you say, "Do you want a third?" I'm like, "Yeah, no," because I have two. It's not like with wristwatches. I'm like, "You want another wristwatch?" I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, of course." I mean, without a doubt. But I mean, but it is good that I think these watches are made. I also like it that there's now still, you see a lot of clocks being made, like special clocks, even in different price categories. I think you saw the Nevada clock that they made of the Pan Am.
Vulcan, no, Vulcan or Nevada?
No, but I think Nevada and then Vulcan did. It
JFK.
was the JFK Airport. Yeah.
Oh,
Which,
sorry. Yes,
funny,
yes.
yeah.
I'm mixing the brands up. Yes,
So
exactly.
that's upside down in the airport, but you have
Yes.
it the right way up on the replica, if you like, of it. Yeah.
So I think that is cool too. It's the same as with. I mean, one of the clocks that I still think is absolutely amazing, and that is also a clock that is especially when you look at the prices that they have now for like used models, is the Jaeger LeCoultre Atmos.
Yes.
I mean,
Amazing.
how incredible is it to have a clock that actually winds itself by difference in temperature?
Natural phenomenon. It's
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
How cool does that get? And I mean,
Yeah.
it's been around for like over half a century. So, but still, it's not like, I know quite a few people that have one. I think I know two people that actually collect them, but that's about it. So I don't think that clocks or pocket watches will like take over the industry. I do think that we might gonna see some more of them, and we're gonna see some amazing things there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also always look at those top tier collectors and say that, oh yeah, they have a lot of money, so that they can afford it and they can do it. Yes, but they also inspire the industry to make objects like this, and they're usually quite generous in showing them before they actually take possession. So I think that's another amazing side of the industry.
Wow. Okay, so it's a thing that will increase in visibility, but not be a thing that takes over bigger trends in the general population. You just mentioned there, Martin, that if you said, "Do you want another wristwatch?" Hell yes. So I'm going to put that question to you. If you want a new wristwatch, what would that wristwatch be?
I don't know, actually. That's a terrible question.
10 questions. You can buy 10. I know our listeners may not know Martin as well as we do. Yeah. So 10 wristwatches.
There's so many good watches around. And I think my biggest problem is that with almost 25 years in the industry, I still have a very eclectic taste. I wish I was a one brand kind of guy, but I'm not. I wish I only liked specific type of watches, but I don't. So I like expensive watches. I like inexpensive watches. I like it all. So and it sounds great, and as a journalist, it is great. But as a collector, it's a bit of a burden, to be honest. Yesterday, I was in a presentation of Casio, and they showed me the watches that they have like planned for the rest of the year, including some new G-Shock models. And I was like, oh, that is really, really cool. Of course, I also follow like the auction sites and stuff like that. And then there was this like vintage, I guess it's not vintage because the brand is not that old, but it was like a Chrono Swiss. And I was like, oh, that looks so good too. So it's hard for me to pick one watch that is going to be my next purchase.
Okay, I'll rephrase that then. Is there anything that's caught your eye recently?
Professional or personal or both?
Personal.
Yeah, both. I mean,
or both. Yeah, it all merges into one when you're this deep into the rabbit hole.
It actually does. Well, actually, at Geneva Watch Days, I saw that Angelus did a new version of the chrono date, now in silver. And for some reason, I really like that chronograph that they did, especially in this color theme, because now it's like a silver dial with them like black subdials. I think that's very, Very charming watch. It's like a nice sports watch. I also like very much the longitude from Arnold and Son, which I also think is a great watch. I tried it on in Watches and Wonders earlier this year, and it's with the integrated bracelet. I saw, and I think we discussed it with you guys as well, although not on the show here, is the forged carbon version of the Tissot PRX. I mean, less than $1,000. I mean, it's a lot of fun for not that much money, which is also something that I like. I mean, I like over the top watches that come with an over the top price tag, but sometimes it's also fun to, well, enjoy a watch that is perhaps not as expensive, but it's still very cool.
Yeah, awesome. Sound two really good choices there. Really lovely. That Angelus one. Okay, a question. Is that a Bicompax? There's a bit of controversy around Bicompax and Tricompax, because Tricompax is all three dials, not just seconds, but they measure something, and sometimes they're called Bicompax. Can you put this myth to bed? With what is a genuine
Usually,
Tricompax?
if it's two subdials, the thing they sacrifice is the hour counter.
Okay.
That's in general. And it's of course the layout as well, because I've never really heard somebody. I mean, if you look at a Valjoux 7750, you have the date at 3:00, and then you have subdials at 6, 9, and 12.
Yeah.
Technically, you could say that's a Tricompax. I've never actually heard somebody refer to a Valjoux 7750 and its traditional layout as a Tricompax. Most.
So why I ask that, Martin, is because you see one and it's just like, oh no, that's a Bicompax. It's got 3 dials, but it's only 2, and it's just like, okay, I get confused.
Well, sometimes what they sometimes do is it's a Tricompax, but they only highlight 2 subdials, the one at 3 and 9 o'clock in a different color. And then, you could say, no, it's Bicompax. In the end, it's just in the name. It's one of the...
Yeah. The try and buy I get that bit. It's just the actual functionality of the...
But you're actually bringing up a good point, Farm. It is a good point, because there are actually quite a few words that we use in watchmaking that are not defined. We were just talking about very thin watches. And a lot of brands, they sell their watches like, slim, ultra slim. But there's no specification when you can actually call a watch ultra slim. I mean, Rolex can sell all their watches being ultra slim. Of course, it would sound ridiculous. But I mean, there's no official designation when a watch becomes ultra slim. Maybe there's some work to do there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of terms that kind of not contradict each other, but can have a double meaning. And we could get lost. We could do a whole show on that. Maybe
there's not an industry standard
today. Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's very
standardized,
regulated. Yeah, standardized.
Yes.
But I just want to ask Andy, in terms of modern watches, is there anything that's caught your eye?
Oh gosh, yes, many watches. Probably one, and it's linking back to Geneva Watch Days. And we talked about this off air as well. And I know, Palm, you've been really trying to plant the wrong word in my mind when saying this watch. But I will say it correct. The Gaga Laboratory has really caught my attention lately. It's a very cool, it's not a jumping hour as such, but the design format and layout is of that style, let's say. And I just really appreciated the one we both tried at. Shout out Limited Edition, shout out Pietro and Ollie. Great company. Thank you for the excellent dinner and the opportunity to try some of these cool independents. But when I tried that on, something about it I just really liked. And you kind of try it on quickly at a dinner table, you're passing it around. And then we get back from Geneva Watch Days and you're going through the endless amount of photos and wrist rolls, what you've taken whilst on the trip. And every time I passed it, I kind of went back and looked at it. There's something about it. I think it's the lugs, what are really cool. The dials, very unique. Like I haven't seen that kind of format before. done to that particular way, and it really resonated with me. I really liked it, and the thing what I liked even more was the price point. So if you're trying to get into independence, like give or take, it was around €3,500. I think that's an excellent price point, personally, for something quite unique, quite different. If you're a collector who doesn't have big bucks to go for the De Buffoons, which are phenomenal watches, but it's a certain level to get there, as this Gaga was a lot more accessible, I thought, but also offering a unique experience and a unique wearer's experience. So curious of what you guys think to that piece, but if you're asking me what really jumped out at me off the beaten track, let's say, that was certainly one. Like the mainstream was Chapek with the Flying Diamonds, with their Venturine dial, absolute my favorite Antarctique to present date, especially in the 38mm form factor, superb. But if we're going off the beaten track, then the Gaga Laboratory was one what stood out to me.
Laboratory, yes.
I see what you did there.
I was messing with Andy earlier on. But yeah, Gaga Laboratory. Yeah, that was a really great watch. That just came out of nowhere. So like, thank you so much to Pietro Tomaya and to Ollie from the limited edition for inviting us to that incredible dinner. We met some super collectors while we were there and just really humble people, really great people. But when one of the guys at the limited edition came out was wearing the watch Andy was speaking about, we assumed the price point was going to be like, we thought, okay, what's the price point? You kind of brace yourself, you kind of grit your teeth. And he said it was about €3,000 or something along those lines.
3.5. So yeah, give or take.
Yeah, sub €4,000. And we were just like, it was, okay, hang on, double take. Let's have another look, because it wasn't like some super high-end priced watch that you kind of just want to, you don't want to touch it because it's so expensive, and you just want to just take a quick glance, and it's something you'll never own. And so you kind of, the interest, when you see something that you know you'll never own, personally anyway, when I see it, I kind of like, I'm interested, I'll look at it. I count myself lucky to have tried it on if it's possible and to have seen it. But when it's something more affordable, you can relate to, resonates with you, with your wallet, it just becomes a lot more appealing also. And I just think that was one of those moments where we were like, wow.
If it's at a price point like this, do you also think that a lower price point can make a watch more wearable because you're less scared maybe that you'll damage it or that it gets stolen or anything like that?
In a way, yes. I think where you'd wear it is dependent on the price and what you would be doing. I wouldn't be drilling holes into anything, wearing even like maybe a G-Shock that's about as durable as I would go. But I also think it's nice to have an independent brand in your collection as well. It's just because independents do so much and they have so much fun. So to have an independent brand and you can catch it at a lower price point, it just makes it more appealing, because De Buffoons, etc., we're not going to be able to get those. And it's nice to see them, but it's almost heartbreaking to hand them back, but when you see something that I could have that one day, it's just nice. It warms the heart a little.
It's an interesting term, isn't it? Independent brand, because I think that's another term that can be applied in various ways.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a whole different rabbit hole.
How so, Martin? Go on. Let's. We've got about 5 minutes left. No.
Sum it up in 5. Yeah.
I'll be back so we can discuss this. But no, it's always funny. Like, you have independent or another one is manufacture. I still remember, like in the late 1990s, early 2000s, everything had to be manufacture. I mean, you couldn't be seen with an ETA-based movement, or Valjoux, it has to be made in-house. And
relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, exactly.
No, it's true, though. I just think independent brands have a special I think on this podcast, we don't want to say we, the stereotype of where we appreciate everything. We do, but independent brands, there is a place, I think, for Andy and myself, and I'm sure for yourself also. I'm 100% sure Martin as well, probably more so than us. For those micro brands, independent brands, it's just, that's the playfulness, that's the fun part. And when it gets too expensive, it kind of gets away from the fun and playfulness. If you're in a lucky enough position to afford all that, then yes, that's your playground. But for the average watch enthusiast, I think price point is appealing.
Well,
Anybody can get there, right? If you're already into watch collecting, then you can get there if you want to, even if you have to save for a year or two. It's obtainable.
Yeah. Well, actually, which leads me into I'll ask myself. So, Brian, which brand did you like?
No, we didn't want to ask you. Come on, we don't care about your opinion.
Was a brand that's caught my eye is Furlan Murray, and I think they were at Geneva Watch Days, but we didn't have time to see them. It's another big regret. Armin Strom, I would have loved to have seen. I didn't get a chance. Andy was fortunate enough to see them, but we didn't get to see Furlan Murray either. And they have released a Disco Volante, and they do it in 3 different colors. They do a Disco Verde, green, Disco Havana in a brownish salmony color, and I think there's a blue one as well. I can't remember the actual name of that, but those just look so cool to me as well. And they're like 2,500 Swiss francs. Again, you're into independent watchmaking, in air quotes then, independent watchmaking. It's a respected brand, and you're getting a Disco Volante, which is just one of those things I think is such a cool one to have. That really caught my eye. It's a mechanical, it's manually wound, Peso 7001 movement, and just the dial on it, the small seconds, the way it's laid out, very vintage layout, but it's something very modern about it. A 38 millimeter as well, which is there you go, the CP7 sweet spot. And to me, that is something, if I wanted to get into the independent side of it all, or just to have an independent piece, I think that ticks most boxes for me.
Well, it's actually probably also one of the few watches you and Andy can actually get on one page with, and both actually own one. I was fortunate that I got to review the Disco Havana with the salmon color dial, and I must say, in the metal, it's a very impressive piece, especially for the price point. And now they also released a gorgeous bracelet.
A mesh? Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a mesh, but it's more like one of those old-fashioned ones, like those 1960s, more like a woven basket kind of feel to it.
Basket weave,
that's very cool. Which is actually which is stunning. So, and actually, now we're discussing this. Did you guys get to see the Alpinas, the new?
We did.
The new skeletons, yes.
What were your thoughts on that?
Very, very sporty. I felt great on the wrist, actually. It's my first time, I think Pam's as well, like experiencing that brand. And again, price point is key, I think, with these things. So to get a skeletonized watch, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sub 3K, right? It's just around the 2K price point from memory.
The Alpiner, you mean?
Yeah.
The Alpiner Extreme, it's kind of like the cushion shape.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
That retails about 2,400, but I was actually more thinking to the new Heritage Automatics.
It's a good question. Yeah, we also tried those. I'm having to think back, though.
Got the reference, the AL525BBG 4SH6 Star Timer.
Yesterday I had my presentation by Casio, and I mean, they talk quite fast because they have so many different references that they have to go through. But I mean, most of them, they don't have a name. Most of them only have a number. And by the end of the presentation, you're like, oh, put 2100 GWD were the 52.
So difficult sometimes when if it's a long code, it's like a barcode or an SKU number. It gets a little
like Grand Seiko
model.
Grand Seiko do the same thing. Yeah.
Some brands, they just don't name their models. I can't. It's challenging for me.
But going back to Valpina, really
Star
like
Timer.
the Heritage range. Yeah, the Star Timer, beautiful. It had, I don't think it was blued hands, but the appearance of blued hands, of course. Really nice contrast. I believe it's the Arabic numerals as well. Yeah, it was just very classic feeling on the wrist, thinking back to that piece. Very clean, very sharp, respecting the heritage very well. It was around 38 millimeters as well, so that sweet spot once more from memory. Yeah, I really liked it. I've got to admit that the Extreme Skeleton was the one what really jumped out at me from the brand. Like, I really liked it.
which is surprising actually, because
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think I'd go for the
sporty.
classic,
This
but yeah,
has
How
got
can you
painted
like that?
numerals dress watch. Lovely
yeah, I
lugs.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
but this is a surprise that you like that skeletonized.
Yeah.
I'm not rigid in what I like. I'm very open to different watches and concepts. So maybe sometimes I go down the vintage rabbit hole and that's where I sit for a bit. But then I put on a modern piece and it feels so nice and refined and you don't have to worry about it. Seconds hands falling off or glass will break after taking it on and off so many times.
No, but I
Yeah.
heard Andy saying it. Oh, it's just nice to have a watch that's not going to. That's new.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It feels good sometimes. I love vintage, but my Rolex Oyster, it's a screw down crown, which is brilliant from the 1930s. But as soon as it pops out, I'm like, oh, be careful, wind it, or carefully set the time, carefully make sure I push it in correctly so it kind of catches correct for the screw down again. Like they're a bit delicate, so I love modern for that. Vintage has its place in my heart, but I think the next watch I buy be modern. I need something modern. Reliability and carefreeness is something I need in my life.
Could it be this Alpina, the Alpina Extreme Skeleton? Because
It could be. It could.
Stunning. It's so cool. It's
beautiful.
£2,500. I'm using UK money for a skeletonized watch, sports integrated bracelet.
I thought it was really cool. It felt great on the wrist, and I'm a sucker for a cushion case, so
Cushion
kind
case,
of won me over on that as well.
Screwed in bezel. It's just superb.
It felt great. I was really impressed. Yeah, my first time with that brand as well, Alpina. My first experience, so really impressed.
If I may challenge you then a bit, Andy, take a look at the Sea Strong Diver Extreme Automatic. That might also be, because it's basically the same case shape, but then as a diver's watch. I actually handled a few of them at Watches and Wonders, and they're now a little bit smaller in diameter. I think it's like 39.
So I might surprise you for a moment. So I'm looking at the piece right now. So sometimes on this podcast we just do the things spontaneous. I really like the orange on the orange strap with an orange in the bezel and the kind of waffle dial. I think that's really cool. I really like that.
Yeah, I actually reviewed that for Watch Time.
Okay.
And so I had a couple of days with it. That piece is kind of addicted. I mean, you get addicted to it. The orange works really well. When I first saw the picture before I got the watch, I thought that's a bit much. But in the metal, it's actually not. And especially for its price points, it had a lot of interesting details. And I was very taken, especially by the dial, which has the little triangle Alpine logo in it. And it's awesome. A lot of play of light, a lot of nice reflections. And the size is good on the wrist too, at least on my wrist, which is kind of like medium. Oh, we actually have the same wrist size, don't we, Andy? And it's nice. It's not too much, but it's comfortable. If you're a person that likes, their watch to match their clothing,
yes,
this might not be your thing unless you want to wear a lot of orange.
Yeah, it's tricky to pair up orange, but cosmetically, I really like it. It reminds me of the Hermes. The H08 is. I know equally Palm loves this. I think all three of us love that piece, and it's one what keeps crossing my mind, and I think equally Palms as well. Like, is that one I'd like to add to the collection at some point, being more modern? But yeah, orange is a tricky color, but it goes well with black actually. So if you wear a lot of black or a nice crisp black shirt or polo,
White.
it can look cool. Or white, yeah. You can, yeah. It's just cool, something funky about
primary colors, not primary colors, black or white, monochrome colors. Yeah,
monochrome.
Yeah. I like the purple dial version. That looks really cool. Of the Sea Strong.
Of course, we're immediately looking it up. Is that purple or blue?
It's purple.
It's like a purple. Yeah, it's cool. Sorry, yeah, we're just quickly checking. Yeah, I really like that as well. It's definitely what you would call a waffle. Like, you couldn't get any closer to a waffle dial, right? It's like a waffle
triangles,
maker.
Isn't it?
It's not a waffle, it's triangles.
Yeah,
triangle. Yeah, okay, yeah, waffle
they have in
square.
Spain,
Well, no,
Triangle-shaped
let me read
waffles
it.
in Spain.
Let
yeah.
me. Yeah, it's like a toasty, toasty machine.
Oh,
Cheese
toasty machine.
Cheese
Yeah.
toasty.
Machine. Okay,
got
it's
a
a toasty dial.
Toasty dial.
Toasty dial.
But you heard it here first. That's it.
That's it.
Toasty dial.
Invented by
Official.
Andy, the toasty
Yeah.
dial. Yeah.
That's
know,
my impact on
That
my
would be the most perfect lunch, a toasty dial and a small beer.
Yes, a small beer.
Yeah.
You have to have the small beer with it
You have to have the
Just
small
to-
beer.
to share those special moments and memories over a small
Yes.
beer and a toasty dial.
And make them everlasting.
Absolutely.
Yes, they never end.
Never.
I think that's a good ending point, actually.
Yeah, okay. Well, unfortunately, may they never end. We are going to have to end this show. We've had so much fun. Thank you so much, Martin. It was an absolute honor to have or as I call him, the distinguished gentleman with more than meets the eye on the show, our gentleman adventurer. Who
The James Bond.
yeah,
the watch
exactly.
industry.
The Indiana
This,
Jones.
is,
I think we called
this
it,
is
yeah.
a lot of credit for a man that's just sitting in his attic writing articles about watches, eh?
That says more about
Well,
us,
that's what
really,
we-
doesn't it?
yeah.
That we're impressed by that. Not by
With-
what
with-
you do, though. The fact that we're impressed
With
by
my
what you do.
desk diver, yes, of course.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So, Martin, thank you so much.
Thank you
We're
for
going
having
to have
me.
you back on, the unofficial third member of the team. It's been a long time,
Absolutely.
but it just feels like yesterday now.
It does. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure as always, and hope to be back soon.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
So I'll come in with a classic sign off. Please go to the website for the best audio visual experience. We'll have all the show notes from today. So all of the pieces, all of the cool pieces we've spoken about will be on our website. So you can listen along to the audio as you go through the galleries, looking at these great pieces in more detail. So you can find that over at www.chronopassion7, as in the number 7.com. And I will do my classic Spanish sign off. So that's adios and hasta luego from Barcelona.
And as Andy says farewell from Spain, Martin says farewell from the Netherlands, from London. Before I say goodbye, look out for next week's show, which will be our official Geneva Watch Days Part 2, which will cover off many more brands that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the last show, and some of the brands we talked about today as well. So we've just touched on a couple of them as well. And also a shout out to all the people and personalities we met. But from London, it's Toodle Pip and laters, and we'll see you and you'll hear us in the next one.